What happens when a decorated U.S. Army general is handcuffed at a gas station not because of any crime, but because of the color of his skin? What starts as one officer's mistake unleashes a nationwide reckoning that no one saw coming. This story will grip your heart and make you question how far we've really come. Don't miss a second, hit that subscribe button and stay with us until the end. A U.S. Army general stopped for gas, showed his ID, and still ended up in handcuffs, all because one officer refused to look past appearances. But what happened minutes later, no one could have predicted. Dominic Warren, a man of quiet strength, wasn't wearing his uniform that afternoon, just a gray polo, jeans, and a Tuskegee hat. After a visit to the VA Center in Fayetteville, he stopped for gas in Fort Liberty. As he filled up his Dodge Charger, he didn't notice the patrol car until the officer was already approaching. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." "Hands where I can see them," barked the young officer, maybe in his early 30s, tense and overbearing. Morris calmly raised his hands. "Officer, is something wrong?" The officer circled his car, suspicious. "You match the description of a robbery suspect." Dominic frowned. "I just left the VA center. I can show you my ID." But the officer interrupted sharply. "Step away from the car." Bystanders started to watch a mother with a toddler, an older man leaning against a truck. Dominic stayed calm. "I'm Major General Dominic Warren, United States Army. I'm not armed." Officer Kyle Donovan didn't care. "Keep your hands visible," he ordered coldly. Dominic, refusing to escalate, said, "I'm not resisting. I'd like to cooperate." Donovan ordered him to put his hands on the hood. Phone started recording. The woman with the toddler looked furious. The older man was filming too. Dominic tried one more time. "Please check my ID, it will clear this up." But Donovan already had the cuffs out. In seconds, a man who had led soldiers into battle, rescued comrades, and spoken at the White House was treated like a common suspect. "That's General Warren," someone from the crowd shouted. Another added, "He runs the Veterans Fundraiser every year." But Donovan ignored them, tightening the cuffs even more. Dominic winced but stayed composed, feeling sadness more than anger for how small some men needed to act to feel powerful. Just then, a new arrival changed everything. Deputy Isaiah Holt had just dropped off his son at STEM camp and stopped for gas. At first, he didn't notice the commotion. But as soon as he stepped out, he heard shouting and saw the crowd gathering. In the center, a tall black man, cuffed. Holt squinted. His heart skipped. He recognized that voice. Moving closer, hand resting on his belt, instinctively he heard it more clearly, that calm, weighty tone. "I'm not a threat to you, Officer," Dominic was saying. "You're making a mistake," Holt said, freezing in place. His mind flashed back to Iraq sandstorms, long nights on the radio. Back then, Major Dominic Warren had been the calm in every storm. Holt had served under him near Baghdad, where Warren led with respect, precision, and quiet strength. Now, that same man was cuffed like a criminal at a gas station. Holt stepped forward. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Donovan turned. "Keep back, sir. Police matter." Holt flipped his badge. "Plainclothes deputy, Cumberland County. I'm Deputy Holt. I asked you a question." Donovan said. Suspect matched a call description. He refused to comply. Dominic turned his head slightly. Holt blinked. "General Warren." Holt stepped closer, his voice sharper. "You didn't check his ID. I said he matched." "I don't care," Holt snapped. "Did you confirm who he is?" Donovan faltered, looking like a kid caught lying. Holt said louder, "He's a major general in the U.S. Army, a nationally recognized officer who led rescue missions under fire." Holt turned to Dominic. "Sir, are you injured?" "No, just humiliated," Dominic said. A woman from the crowd added. He offered his ID. The cop refused to look. Holt faced Donovan. "Uncuff him. Right now." Donovan hesitated. "I was following protocol." Holt pointed at the phone's recording. "You're 2 minutes from being viral news." Reluctantly, Donovan reached for the cuffs. Holt moved faster, grabbed the keys from Donovan's belt, and unlocked the cuffs himself. He gently rubbed Dominic's wrists. "Thank you," Dominic said quietly. "I'm fine. Just tired of this." Donovan stepped back, sweating. Holt didn't flinch. "You're going to report this," he said. Dominic shook his head. You know I'm not that kind of man. I know, Holt replied. But I implied. Holt pulled out his phone, called his supervisor. We've got a problem, he said. One of yours detained a high-ranking Army officer without cause. I have it all on video. I need a watch commander at the Shell station on Camden Road. Now. The crowd started dispersing, but several people nodded at Dominic in quiet respect. A middle-aged woman mouthed thank you as she passed. Dominic leaned against his car silently. Holt stood beside him. You all right? Physically, yes. Mentally, same answer, Dominic said. Then he added, glancing sideways, I've been treated worse in enemy territory. But I never expected this. Not at home. Not after all these years. Holt looked away, jaw tight. Dominic said quietly, you did the right thing, Raphael. You always do. But the fallout from that moment wouldn't stay in that parking lot. Someone had already sent the footage to the local news. 15 minutes later, Lieutenant Karen Rolls from Fort Liberty PD arrived at the gas station. The mood was tense but controlled. Holt kept Donovan at a distance. Morris sat on the hood of his car, arms crossed not in anger but composed. Lieutenant Rolls, late 40s, all business, quickly approached. She had heard Holt's voice and knew it wasn't a call to ignore. Holt met her halfway. Lieutenant Deputy Holt. You've got a problem, ma'am, he said, glancing at Donovan standing stiff nearby, avoiding eye contact. That officer detained a U.S. Army general on private property without probable cause. Ignored ID, ignored witnesses. I was there. Rolls Whitmore D sharply and turned to Donovan. Officer Donovan, is that true? The subject matched a description. I was exercising caution, Donovan replied. Did he resist? No. Did you check his ID? He offered it, but what? Rolls pressed. I wasn't sure it was real, Donovan muttered. Holt raised an eyebrow. You mean you didn't like the way he looked? Rolls turned to Morris. Sir, I'm Lieutenant Rolls. I apologize on behalf of the department. This should never have happened. Morris nodded slightly. Thank you. But I just want to go home. I understand. May I speak with you privately? Morris agreed. They stepped away, while Holt leaned against the passenger door, watching. He had seen racial profiling before, but seeing Morris, a decorated general, calmly endure being cuffed like a schoolboy stung deeply. Holt remembered Basra, when Morris once walked half a mile through sniper fire just to check on injured troops not out of duty but principle. Meanwhile, Donovan stared at the ground, defeated. Minutes later, Rolls returned. He's heading home. We'll conduct an internal review. You'll be contacted for a statement, she told Holt. Then barked at Donovan. Wait in your car. Say nothing. When Morris returned to his car, Holt opened the passenger door. Sit tight, he said. Holt pulled out his phone and started recording. My name is Deputy Raphael Holt, badge number 33102. He ignored standard procedure and verbal identification. I believe this was personal bias, not proper policing. He saved the video. Just in case, he muttered. Back in the car, Morris said, you didn't have to put yourself on the line. I did. And I'll do it again, Holt replied. They sat silently for a moment as life carried on around them. You think this'll blow over? Morris asked. Holt shook his head. Not this time. Someone already sent footage to RAL. It's spreading fast. Morris stared ahead. Then let it. Holt nodded. You sure you're okay? I've been through worse, Morris said with a faint smile, but that's not the point. Holt knew it too. And while they hoped the situation might stay local, the video didn't stop there. It had already reached national reporters, and someone important in D.C. had recognized Morris. When Dominic got home that evening, the video had already passed 100,000 views. His phone buzzed nonstop with texts, calls from old colleagues, even a voicemail from a Pentagon friend. He sat on his couch, remote in hand, debating whether he even wanted to see how far it had gone. On Channel 5, the clip played again, him standing cuffed, calm, staring ahead. Holt's voice cut through. You're 2 minutes away from being on the evening news. This video is going live. The anchor continued. General Morris Warren, a highly respected U.S. Army officer, was wrongfully detained today by a Fort Liberty police officer, believed to be a case of racial profiling. The officer, Kyle Donovan, recently transferred from Flagler County, Florida, where he had prior excessive force complaints. Dominic turned off the TV. He leaned back, hands folded over his stomach, by-play plaques, awards, and flags from his military career, none of which had mattered at that gas station. Across town, Holt sat in his kitchen. His wife Delia, arms crossed, asked, "Did you know it would go this far?" Holt nodded. "I knew it needed to." She warned, "They'll come after you. Departments protect their own." "Let them try," Holt said. Later that night, Lieutenant Rolls called Holt. Her voice was tight. "You'll be asked for a statement. The chief and mayor are involved. Donovan is suspended with pay pending investigation." Holt just replied, "Understood." "Be careful," she added. "Always am," he said. Meanwhile, Dominic received direct messages from journalists and news producers asking for interviews. He ignored them. Instead, he called retired Colonel Everett Hall. "I saw it," Everett said. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Dominic replied. "You want me to make calls?" "No. This isn't about one officer, it's the system. But that's not why I'm calling." Dominic looked at an old photo of his first command in Kandahar. "I want you to highlight someone," Dominic said. "Deputy Holt." He stood up when no one else did. "You sure you don't want the spotlight yourself?" Everett asked. "I never did," Dominic replied. The next morning, local papers picked up the story. Military outlets followed. Within 24 hours, Holt's name was trending. Some called him a hero, others a traitor. Holt ignored the noise and finished his incident report. Meanwhile, Donovan stayed silent, no statements, no apology. But that wouldn't last. The police chief had just received a sealed envelope, Donovan's old disciplinary file, and it wasn't just bad, it was alarming. By Sunday morning, Fort Liberty PD was cornered. What started as a local scandal had exploded into a national headline. Civil rights attorneys weighed in. Veterans launched an online petition demanding accountability, gathering nearly 50,000 signatures in under 36 hours. And the footage. It kept looping across every major news outlet. Talk shows dissected the story everywhere. The image of General Morris Warren standing calm in handcuffs was everywhere. But behind the scenes, pressure wasn't just from social media, it came from within. Officer Donovan's sealed file, leaked from his old department in Flagler County, showed 37 pages of complaints, excessive force cases, and a recommendation for psychological evaluation. No charges had stuck, but Fort Liberty never read the fine print when they hired him. Now they had no choice. Lieutenant Maddox sat across from Chief Henry Whitmore behind a closed door. Whitmore, a man who valued loyalty, muttered, "We brought this on ourselves." Reading the report again, he knew Donovan should never have been on field duty. They didn't know how the file leaked, but it was real. Whitmore sighed. "We'll issue a statement by noon. If we don't, the mayor will." At home, Holt sat with his laptop, declining 3 interview requests. He didn't want fame, just truth. His wife Delia brought him coffee. "They digging into the officer?" she asked. Holt nodded. "Are you worried?" "No," he said. "I told the truth." Meanwhile, Dominic stayed silent. Journalists camped outside his home, but he ignored them. He put on his army jacket and went to the Veterans Center, spending time with people who saw him as a man, not a headline. Inside, a young vet named Xavier approached. "I saw the video," Xavier said quietly. "It hurt, but it felt familiar." Dominic nodded. "Sometimes the uniform doesn't shield you. Will anything change?" Xavier asked. "Maybe not today," Dominic said. "But sometimes the right moment forces the right eyes open." Elsewhere, Donovan sat alone in his apartment, curtains drawn. His badge and phone were confiscated. Some colleagues messaged him briefly, "You messed up, man." He kept replaying that day, knowing deep down he judged Dominic in an instant like so many others before. Only this time his target had a voice, a history, and the strength to expose him. But things weren't done spiraling. Monday morning, the district attorney's office opened a formal inquiry. By 8:45 a.m., it was official. By noon, DA Jasmine Hayes held a quiet press conference. After reviewing body cam footage, civilian recordings, and witness statements, "Our office is moving forward with charges against Officer Kyle Donovan, including false imprisonment, unlawful detention, and obstruction of justice." The announcement hit like lightning. Donovan was quietly taken into custody, booked, and released on bond. Reporters waited, but he said nothing. His lawyer blamed media pressure and insisted Donovan feared for his safety, claims the video clearly contradicted. Dominic didn't celebrate. He didn't comment. He didn't need to. The truth was already out there, and that was enough for him. Instead, he returned to his quiet routine: morning walks, short drives to base, coffee at the local diner where the waitress treated him like anyone else. He agreed to speak only once. At the Veterans Center the following Friday, word had spread. When Morris arrived, the room was full, not with cameras, but with people. Old soldiers, young enlistees, local families. Some had never met him. Others knew his full military record by heart. He stood near the window, no script, no paper, just his voice. "I didn't plan to be the face of anything," he began. "I've spent my career solving problems quietly. But what happened in that parking lot wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who doesn't have cameras recording when they're misjudged. Everyone who can't flash a badge or rank to stop it." The room was still. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. "I was lucky," he continued, "because Rafa Holt was there and because someone pressed record. But that shouldn't be what saves you. Yet here we are." He looked around. "If you serve your country, you don't do it for praise. You do it because people matter, because who they are matters, not who you assume they are. If we forget that, if we let fear and pride run the show, we lose more than dignity. We lose each other." When he finished, no one clapped at first. Not because they weren't moved, but because it felt too real for applause. Holt stood in the back, arms folded, quietly watching. When Morris caught his eye, Holt gave a small nod of respect, nothing more. Later that day, Holt received a call from a senior liaison at the State Office of Police Standards. They were organizing a leadership panel to address profiling and misconduct, and they wanted him to be part of it. "Are you willing to speak to a room full of cops?" the liaison asked. Holt answered without hesitation, "If they're willing to listen." Meanwhile, Donovan stayed silent. No media appearances, no interviews. He was suspended indefinitely without pay, awaiting a court date set for the following month. The community had moved on, but not entirely. At the diner on Ramsey Street, someone had taped a photo of Morris next to the counter, just him, in uniform, smiling. No caption. It didn't need one. At the Veterans Center, Xavier, the young vet, started volunteering weekly, helping new service members adjust after deployment. He told Morris, "What happened at the gas station changed something for me. Made me want to stand taller." Morris patted his back lightly. "Then make sure you're standing for the right things." But the story didn't really end there. The moment at that gas station had planted a seed. What people did with it would define what came next. 3 weeks later, the viral clips had slowed, the headlines faded, and the frenzy moved on as it always does. But the memory remained. At Fort Liberty High School, a civics teacher used the video of General Warren S. detention to start a discussion about assumptions and authority. At first, students were quiet. Then slowly they opened up. One boy said his father had been pulled over 6 times in 2 months. A girl said her uncle, who served 2 tours in Afghanistan, still gets followed around in stores. The teacher said little. She let the video speak for itself. Meanwhile, Holt had begun leading departmental sessions. It wasn't glamorous, just officers, some skeptical, some open-minded, sitting around a table discussing real scenarios. The first meetings were tense. Some officers rolled their eyes, one walked out. But others stayed, asked questions, and looked uncomfortable, which was the point. Holt didn't preach. He just spoke the truth. "When you wear this badge," he said during one session, "you carry more than power, you carry judgment. And if you judge wrong, you don't just mess up paperwork. You mess up lives." After one session, a young officer approached Holt and admitted, "I didn't know who General Warren was. I probably would have done what Donovan did." Holt looked at him and asked, "Would you have asked for ID?" "Yeah." "Then maybe you wouldn't have," Holt said. At the Veterans Center, Morris had returned to his usual volunteer hours. He had declined every national interview. He didn't want to be a hashtag or praised for being calm. That wasn't the point. One afternoon, a young reporter from a military journal showed up. She was respectful but nervous. "I just want to ask you one thing," she said. "Why didn't you speak out more publicly?" Morris smiled softly. "Because it wasn't about being seen. It was about being reminded. How fast perception replaces truth. One second I was a citizen. The next, a suspect. It had nothing to do with what I did, and everything to do with what he assumed. She scribbled down notes. So what should people take away from it? He thought for a moment. That authority doesn't always come with wisdom. And that staying calm in the face of injustice isn't weakness, it's control. I don't need people to admire me. I need them to look inward. The reporter nodded and left. That evening, Holt joined Morris for dinner. Two old soldiers, no fanfare. You know, Holt said, setting down his fork, if you'd pushed back that day, even just raised your voice, we'd be telling a different story right now. Morris nodded. I know. That's the weight we carry. You ever get tired of carrying it? Holt asked. Every day, Morris said. But I've learned not to let it break me. Holt leaned back. You think Donovan will see jail time? Doubt it, Morris said. But maybe he'll see something else. Maybe he'll see himself. The next morning, Morris stood before a class of young ROTC cadets. He didn't tell them the story they already knew. One cadet asked, "How do you stay calm when someone comes at you sideways?" Morris answered simply, "You remember who you are before they try to define you." That line stuck with them and far beyond. Maybe in the end, that mattered most, not the punishment, not the headlines, not the viral moment, but the mirror it held up for everyone. Because at some point, each of us must decide how we respond to being wrongly judged, misunderstood, or erased. And each time, in that small moment, someone chooses dignity over fear and teaches the rest of us something we didn't know we needed to learn. Several years later, the world had moved on. The viral videos had faded from the headlines, replaced by new stories, new crises. But the impact of what happened that day at the gas station never truly disappeared. In a quiet hall at a local university, a new generation of students gathered for a leadership seminar on ethics, justice, and courage. On one wall, a simple framed photo hung, no dramatic caption, no spotlight, just the image of a man standing calm, dignified, with his hands cuffed behind him, refusing to lose his humanity. An older guest speaker, a former deputy now retired, pointed at the photo and said, "You don't measure a person's strength when things are easy. You see it when they're tested, and they refuse to become what the world wrongly expects." In the crowd, a young cadet sat up straighter, eyes bright with understanding. Across the country, in small ways and large, the quiet ripples from that afternoon continued in how officers approached a stop, in how young leaders thought about power and fairness, in how some people, when facing a moment of injustice, chose to remember who they were instead of letting fear define them. The story had never been about a single day, a single injustice. It had always been about the countless unseen moments that built or broke a better world. This story reminds us that dignity cannot be stolen unless we surrender it. Patience and calmness in the face of injustice are not weakness, they are real strength. Every fair glance, every courageous action becomes a small stone paving the way to a better society. And you, after hearing this story, what are your thoughts? If it were you, how would you respond to everyday injustices, both big and small? As for me, I believe that though the road is long and full of challenges, every act of kindness today helps shape a better tomorrow. Note: this story is entirely fictional and created for the purpose of raising awareness. It highlights issues of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.